scripture lesson for today is from the book of Mark, chapter 10, verses 41 through 45. When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many."
Well, good morning. As I said earlier, it is Youth Sunday, so the kids will be joining me up here in a little bit. They have some things to present, but I thought I would start out just by sharing some things with you. And our main point with Youth Sunday today is to talk with you and share with you about what the middle school youth group has been doing over the last 3 to 4 weeks as our curriculum. Our current curriculum is on service, and we started it on Martin Luther King Jr. week. It seemed like a natural time to talk about serving others. And so we've talked about just how we serve others in a variety of ways. As we begin today, though, I would like to redirect your attention to the scripture lesson. Mark 10, 41 through 45 says, "When the 10 heard this, they became angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, 'You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. Whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave to all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" Contextually, these verses come just after James and his brother John finished asking Jesus for permission to sit on Jesus' right and left side in his glory, or as we would probably say, in heaven. And Jesus tells them, quite frankly, that the decision may not be his to make. But he also lets them know that in order to sit on his right and left side in heaven, they have to be willing to drink of the same cup that he's going to drink. And of course, they assure him that they can do that. However, we know the end of the story. They didn't. We know that might be a really hard thing to do. It's when you're at that point where you have to give up everything, including your own life, it can be very difficult. It can be very scary. And the disciples are a little bit upset when they hear that this is what James and John are asking. I personally have wondered if maybe they were kind of all wanting to ask it themselves, and James and John just got there first. We don't know, but I was just kind of wondering about that. Jesus' response to all of this, of course, is to completely change the rules on them and on us. And he says that whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be a slave to all. As I mentioned previously, since early to mid-January, the middle schoolers and I have been focusing on serving others. Serving with our time, with our money, and with our actions. And when I first started talking with them about being a servant, what that might look like, one of the kids said, "Well, that would be awesome because servants get paid. And then this would be like a part-time job for me." So we had to rephrase it a little bit and say, what if you were a slave to everyone? What if you were everyone's slave? Well, that wasn't quite as much fun. That would not be a part-time job. So we rethought about that a little bit in youth group. I think it's easy to talk about what it means to serve others. Naturally, we all want to serve, and we all want to think of ourselves as people who are willing to give because we're Christians. And I think that we are all willing to serve and to give. We have good intentions, and we care about the needs of other people. Certainly, if someone was hurting here in front of us today, we as a group or individually would do everything we could to help them. But what about those people who are hurting from things we are unaware of? How do we serve them? That was a question I raised with the kids. And to start this curriculum, I had our middle schoolers participate in an activity I had heard about before but had never done. So you can imagine I was a little nervous doing this with our 5th and 6th graders because you never know what's going to happen. But they were great. They were great guinea pigs. They had no problem just going with the flow and seeing what was going to happen. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. We called this activity the chair exercise, and the kids who participate in it still have a lot to say about it. And I thought it would be kinder to just tell you about it today than to make you all participate in it, do a big activity as a group. That might be a little much. But during the chair exercise, we had 8 kids and myself, so 9 people total. And I was the narrator, or kind of the bossy lady in charge. And I shared with them that some of the kids were really going to like me at the end of this activity, and some of them were really not going to like me, and that was okay. So to start, we each had one chair that we stood in front of. And I divided the kids into 3 groups. Each group was going to get 3 chairs. Group 1 consisted of Wyatt Radloff. So he got 3 chairs to himself. And yeah, Wyatt, you remember that? It was pretty fun, huh? Yeah. So he got 3 chairs to himself, and he got to pick who he took the other 2 chairs from. And I'm sad to say that Noah and Brianna, may have suffered that fate as his siblings. He took the chairs from them. Group 2 was Bronwyn and Lauren Hansen, and between the 2 of them, they got 3 chairs, so they got to take a 3rd chair from someone. And then this left just 3 chairs for the other 5 kids to sit on. We called them Group 3. And when Group 3 started complaining to me that this was unfair, I actually pointed out to them that it was very fair. 3 groups, 3 chairs. It was not my fault that they did not plan ahead and kick out some of the kids before we started this activity. To make matters worse, I then gave each chair 2 candy bars. So that's when we really started talking about fairness, because Wyatt got 6 candy bars all to himself. And Group 3, which included his brother and sister, got 6 candy bars to share with 5 people. As we sat together, and some of us sat on laps or smushed together, I began asking the group questions. I said, of these 3 groups, who has the most? The answer was obvious. Group 1, Wyatt, then Group 2, Bronwyn and Lauren, then Group 3. I asked then, of these 3 groups, which would be more likely to get help in school, to get a better education, to get into a better college, or to get better health care if they needed it? And again, Group 1, then Group 2, then Group 3. And when I asked why, Bronwyn said, because Wyatt has more resources than the rest of us. I asked a few more questions to drive home my point, but what I was trying to show the kids is that there are obvious things that we see that are wrong and that we try to fix, and then there are things that are hidden that we don't always see that need to be addressed as well. Interestingly, Wyatt, Bronwyn, and Lauren did not offer to give up their chairs, and never once did the people in Group 3 demand extra chairs from the group. It was assumed that because we were set up this way, this is the way it had to be. And I had been told from other youth directors who've done this exercise that that's pretty common. People don't realize that we can ask for what we need from each other. So as we sat back together in the youth room after we had completed the exercise, I asked the kids, so if we were going to relate this to real life, who are the people in Group 3? And their response was pretty automatic. They said, the poor. So then I asked them to reframe the idea, and I said, what if we're talking about power? Not money, but power. Then who would be in Group 1, 2, and 3? And I found something interesting. I found that middle school kids relate power to strength, physical strength. So they talked about the strongest people would be in Group 1 and the weakest people would be in Group 3. And when I asked them to think about that, okay, so we're talking about strength, but what about groups of people? Are there groups of people in our world that are stronger than others, that have more than others? Then they began offering ideas that Group 3 might be people like immigrants, people with disabilities, people of color, or the LGBT community. groups that just need a little, extra support and protection because of things that make them different. I also pointed out to them that as kids, they might be in group 3 because sometimes kids get discriminated against. And I asked them to share their thoughts, and they shared that, yeah, that was right. Sometimes they don't feel like their voices are heard at school or in sports or other activities. And they shared that they really don't like it when they go to Quick Trip or other stores in Lake Mills, and they're not allowed to go in as a group, or they're not allowed to take their backpacks in because it's assumed that they're going to shoplift. Now, they all assured me that they would never, ever shoplift anything. Is that true? Yes. No. You would shoplift, Noah? Okay, well, let's praise Noah for his honesty, right? We're in church. But it was really eye-opening for me to see that the kids understand sometimes more than we give them credit for. And it opened up a larger conversation between us about standing up for people as a way of serving. That first Wednesday night that we had this discussion, I asked if there was anyone at school who was picked on. And at first they all said, oh, no, we're all so nice to each other. No one gets picked on at school. But then as we talked more about this, it came up that there was a student at school, and we never named names, who smelled. He didn't shower enough, his clothes were rarely clean, for whatever reason he smelled. And the kid said, everyone makes fun of him, but he doesn't care, he just goes like this and pretends not to be involved in the conversation. In my own history of working with low-income and families through social service organizations, I've known of many kids whose parents can't afford to pay high water bills. So as a family, they shower less, and they don't clean their clothes very often, and sometimes that results in people not smelling as best as they could. I shared some of these thoughts with the kids, and that night as we left the group, I challenged them to each serve one person this week in a new way, just one, and then come back the next Wednesday and share that example with the group. So the next week, I didn't know if they would remember, because 7 days is a long time, but when I started the discussion, Nina Sapp spoke up right away, and she said, there were kids making fun of that boy we talked about last week, so I told them to be quiet and leave him alone. Actually, Beth, I told them to shut up, but I didn't think you'd like that. I said I don't care what you say. I'm glad that you said something. When I asked how this boy responded, she said he smiled at me. He seemed to appreciate it. Each of the 10 kids had a great example to share of how they had served someone that week, but Nina's was the one I remember, not only because it was exceptionally kind, but also because it was very, very powerful. Jesus has asked us to serve, not just from our abundance, but also from our places of want. It's not easy for everyone to stand up to a bully, or to stand up when they feel intimidated, or when everyone else is going another way. Even as adults, or maybe especially as adults, it's hard to stand alone in a group. James and John asked to sit at the right and left side of Jesus, and he told them, you have to be able to drink the same cup that I do. They were so eager to say we can and will. I think we all would be as eager to say the same thing. But the realities of that promise can challenge us in ways we may never have imagined. The beauty of offering our lives as lives of service is that we will never do it alone. God has promised to be with us in all that we do. He has promised to see us through even the most difficult challenges we may face. It doesn't make it easier, but it can help us respond with small acts of great love. And when we think about it, positive change grows from just such service and love. At this time, I'm going to ask the middle schoolers to all come up, and please bring whatever you need. Along with serving through our actions, I took $200 out of the youth budget, and each middle schooler was invited to give $10 to an organization of their choice, to a nonprofit or charity of their choice. And I let them know that by taking this money out of our youth budget, it meant we might have less snacks for drop-in. We might do less activities that cost money and look at free activities, but that was okay, that part of serving is giving of our money. So now they're going to be sharing with you where they chose to give their money and why they chose to give it there. they'll be reading for themselves, and also there were many kids that couldn't be here today. So after they tell you about it, then they're going to hang, we had these put on apples, so they're going to hang their apples on the giving tree. So you can take a look after service. Okay, Brianna, how are you? Good. Okay, so you have 2 apples. Which one is yours? Okay, where'd you get it?
Blessings in a backpack.
Okay, and what is Blessings in a Backpack?
It's for kids on the weekends who don't have enough food.
Okay, so they send home bags of food on the weekends. Okay, and why did you choose them?
Because it's a really good organization and a lot of kids are hungry on weekends.
Awesome. And whose other apple do you have?
Olivia Olson,
Okay, and Olivia couldn't be here today. Where did she give her money?
Jefferson County Humane Society.
To the Humane Society. And do you know why?
Yeah, because she really wants to help animals.
Okay, so she's really passionate about animals. Thank you. It's hard to come up and share sometimes. Vanessa, okay, where did you choose to give your money, Vanessa?
Helping Haitian Angels.
Which is?
It's an organization that goes on mission trips over there to provide food and to sometimes build homes for people in Haiti.
Awesome. And why did you choose them?
Because I feel very passionate about helping those in need.
Thank you. And do you have your friend Josie's as well?
Yeah.
Okay, and where did she give?
ELCA, World Hunger.
Okay, so she gave to ELCA World Hunger. And why did she choose them?
Because she doesn't want kids to go to sleep hungry.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Nina, who do you have here?
I did Meals on Wheels
And why did you do Meals on Wheels?
because I think it's great that they give food to people who don't have any.
Awesome. And who else's do you have?
There's,
You have Victor's, okay. And where did Victor give?
he gave to the Red Cross
And why?
because his house burned down and they gave money, they donated money to him and his family.
Great. So they helped him when he was in need? Thank you, Nina. Bronwyn. And I just want to say that Bronwyn kind of designed the tree back here, which was awesome because the leaders that week, we had no artistic talent among us. So we appreciated that she had artistic talent. The leaders, not the students. Okay. I know you have lots now. There's lots of them. So Bronwyn, where did you give your money?
I also gave it to the Red Cross.
The Red Cross. And why did you pick the Red Cross?
Because they do an amazing job of helping people in need and they deserve that money.
Okay. And who else? Do you have Lauren's? Is that right? And where did she give her money?
She gave it to Shelter from the Storm because she loves animals.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Wyatt. Now, Wyatt, you and your friend Cole both gave to the same organization, right? What organization is that?
Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels. Okay, and why did you choose to do that?
So people can have food.
People can have food. Excellent. Okay, thanks, Wyatt. Davis. Okay, where are you giving your money, David?
The Humane Society,
The Humane Society, and why?
because I like dogs.
You like dogs. Thank you, David. Last but not least is Noah. And I just want to point out that if you need an ark, he knows a guy. So I know a guy. So Noah, where did you give your money?
To the Red Cross.
To the Red Cross? We had a lot of people give to the Red Cross. And why?
Because a lot of people are sick and I want to help them.
People are sick and you want to help? And who else do you have there? Do you have Kayla's? And who did Kayla choose to give to?
The Jefferson County Humane Society.
And do you know why she chose that?
Because she cares a lot about animals.
Well, thank you very much. You can hang up your apples on the giving tree. You can just take your paper back with you. So there you have it. I hope you've learned a little bit about serving and service. And you've also got to see, you've learned a little bit about what we're doing in youth group this week or this month. So I would just end with a challenge to everyone here to think about going out and serving someone new in a completely different way this week as an expression of our faith and our love for God. God, we thank you for this day and for all that you have given us. We thank you for the chance to be here together and to worship you. We thank you for the lessons that you teach us, even when they're very difficult to learn.